The Garden State Initiative recently released a report entitled Toward a Fiscally Sustainable New Jersey. To discuss this report, I'm joined by the president of the Garden State Initiative, Regina Egea. Regina, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
What I found really interesting is you held a virtual press conference with the two authors of the report, along with former Governor Tom Kean. Can you tell me about that virtual press conference and how that went?
Sure. So they were quite fervent about, this is not about looking back. I mean, they did look at the 2012 report, but it wasn't about blaming and it wasn't about who's responsible. It was more about making recommendations and how we can really leapfrog and improve our state economy.
You're not going to blame anybody. There's no point. And the problems the state is now in have been a record of a number of administrations, a number of governors, a number of legislators. So I'm not blaming the governor, I'm not blaming the legislature. But I am suggesting that they're responsible for starting to correct the problem. And here is a path. Here's a simple path. If you follow the recommendations of this report, you can put the state in a position where it's going to be better in the future, not worse.
You know, this is not an issue that is partisan. The cost of living, the jobs that we've got here that employ all of our citizens, some of the investments that we're making, these are not partisan. These are all about quality of life in New Jersey.
But where it's just easier to do business and to, raise a family and live your life. And so I think we're really at this critical juncture right now where people are trying to figure this out.
So the report itself really delivered both an analysis and some recommendations. And on the analysis side, what the authors did was look at objectively the rate of growth of our population, of jobs in our state, as well as the spending by the state. But unfortunately, our spending is outpacing all of those things in addition to outpacing inflation.
We make 4 clear recommendations in the report. One is to hold the line on taxes. The second is to reform the pension and health systems. The third is to make the investments in infrastructure. And the fourth is to structurally balance the budget.
So the analysis was objectively done and I think delivered quite a powerful message that we have an opportunity now with the coming out of the pandemic and thinking about how can we, to the title of the report, have a sustainable fiscal situation for the state and really address some of these issues.
I want to highlight that you're launching a campaign about education around these issues. And I think this is really important because so many day-to-day average New Jerseyans hear these topics and they glaze over. And you've launched a podcast, you have a campaign that's really highlighting and illuminating these specific issues that you've talked about.
Right. Thanks for bringing that up, Brian, because I think it is very important in terms of trying to communicate in different ways and on different platforms to different audiences to try to broaden the understanding. And so as you remarked, the report itself, those who are into policy making, this is a more than 35-page report, and some people need that level of detail and they really want to dig in on it. Other individuals, they have a category they're interested in and they need to learn more about. So we've tried to take the report and break it down into pieces, number one, but also give an understanding of these big ideas like what does pension reform really mean, right? And how do we get a message? Why do you care about it, right? As an individual who resides in our state or works in our state, why do you even care about that? And we're trying to help deliver that on a digital campaign, as well as forums and different places where we'll talk about this report. So these are the kind of ways we're trying to translate what feels like big subjects into really bite-sized pieces for the average resident or anybody who's interested in deep diving on the policies. The Garden State Initiative is releasing a new report, Toward a Fiscally Sustainable New Jersey, Analysis and Recommendations, authored by today's guests, Tom Healey and Thad Calabrese.
Again, this combination of the deep dive, the really dig into these topics that you're doing with the report, as well as giving people a gateway to find out about specific things, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's jumping into a link on social media or visiting your website. Regina Egea, thank you so much for your time. People should take a look at the reports being released currently, plus lots of other media for people to absorb and consume to really learn about this set of topics here in New Jersey. Regina Egea, the president of Garden State Initiative, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brian.